welcome. I'm very pleased to welcome Jacob Ennis from the Center of Simulation and Innovation from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So happy you're here, Jacob.
Happy to be here.
So I have some questions about AI, and you're very kindly deciding that, we have a little bit of time to talk about it. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So even though the Center for Simulation and Innovation doesn't produce artificial intelligence products, and we're not necessarily involved in the development of AI, we have been using AI tools to sort of help us with our workflow, just like lots of industries. And so as kind of an AI hobbyist and someone who's been in the technology world for a long time, I'd absolutely love to discuss some artificial intelligence with you today.
That's amazing. Well, I so appreciate you. That's wonderful. It's just great when it's like it's your interest from years ago, but now everything is becoming, right? It isn't just, like a few people, but it's like everyone is beginning to learn and to realize the power of it.
Yeah.
And the potential of it, right?
And artificial intelligence right now is such a huge buzzword. It's
True.
such an important, it's on everybody's minds.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of clarification that oftentimes needs to be done because there are a lot of people who have an idea of what AI might be, but don't really have much experience with it. And so hopefully I'll be able to kind of ease a little bit of that, dispel a little bit of that fog and give people a clearer idea of what artificial intelligence is and kind of how it works.
Right. So you can tell us actually for people who just are wondering, what is AI and how does it work?
Okay. So AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it's a way for computers to learn things and produce results at a much faster rate than any type of software before. Although AI sounds complicated and it is cutting edge and crazy technology, it actually works in a really simple way. A programmer will create an algorithm that continuously scans and looks over a large set of data. This data could be anything, but for our example, we'll use photos of people. The algorithm will scan and process millions and millions of photos of people. With each photo, the algorithm gets better at deciphering what a person actually looks like.
Wow.
After seeing enough photos of people, the AI algorithm will be able to reproduce a photo of a person, even though that person that the AI creates doesn't actually exist and is merely a combination of attributes and data that the AI has learned that a photo of a person should have. So as a result, the longer that an AI exists and the more data that it has available to comb through, the more effective it makes itself. So AI programs continuously grow and learn independent of the people who created them.
That's extraordinary. And it can be shared too. What people are finding out on their own, the information can be pooled and collaborated upon.
Yes, it can.
So what types of things are people using AI for right now?
AI is entering just about every industry on the planet right now, and it's doing so at an incredible rate. So by the time that this airs and by the time that I've talked about the things that I know that AI has been used in, there will probably be 100 more uses for AI that have just been discovered or have just been implemented, and that's how quickly the technology world is moving right now.
Wow.
But AI at this point is already being used for all sorts of things. Writing emails, creating recipes, creating paintings or photos of things that don't really exist, building marketing materials, creating music, having conversations, upscaling digital assets, even making video games run faster and smoother, using artificial intelligence technology that takes the game itself at a lower resolution and guesses what the pixels should look like to bring it up to a higher, more detailed resolution.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy stuff that's going on.
It's insane.
And all of this is really only just scratching the surface. In just about every industry, AI is finding a use case to help people improve their workflow. Yesterday, I was at an AI summit at Topgolf, actually, in Auburn Hills.
Oh, I love it there.
It was so much fun.
Oh,
we had a great time. But they were talking about how they're using artificial intelligence to very easily recognize in manufacturing parts that could cause problems for a machine. So especially when it comes to machines that people rely on for safety or machines that could hurt somebody if they malfunction, these AI programs have a much higher success rate than previous software and have a much higher success rate than people do at easily and quickly recognizing flaws in manufacturing components and making sure that those components are either repaired or thrown away.
My goodness. So it's safer too.
Much safer.
So how do you use AI for the work that you do?
So we develop augmented reality and virtual reality software,
Okay.
which means that we're very often working within 3D environments. It's very similar to creating video games, except as opposed to video games, we make software for education or training or things like that. But essentially, the design process happens in a very similar way. As a matter of fact, the engine that we create most of our products in is the Unity engine, which is also used primarily for video games. So we use AI to help generate training materials, to create voice lines for our avatars, to build and animate 3D models, to create 3D scans of building interiors using just video clips, and even to correct and proofread some of the writing that's on our website.
Amazing, isn't it? So it can edit and it can generate writing as well, right? It can, if you tell it, write me a script or write me, I guess, an ad, something like that.
Yeah, and so there are quite a few AI programs out there that have those sorts of capabilities. The one that most people know, I think the most popular artificial intelligence program right now is ChatGPT, which can be accessed for free online, and it's causing all sorts of interesting discussions because it's capable of all these amazing and profound things, but it also has all these interesting drawbacks where how can we tell if, because before this I was a teacher, how can we tell if a student actually wrote their paper or if they had ChatGPT write some of it or at least proofread it for them?
That's true.
And so that's an interesting topic.
It's challenging.
And then another interesting topic is that ChatGPT has this tendency to what people call hallucinate. Artificial intelligence hallucinations.
I understand what you're
and
saying.
the idea behind it is that all of the data that ChatGPT gets is scoured from the internet. And as all of our parents have told us when we were children, the internet is not always true, and sometimes people lie. But ChatGPT doesn't know that. And so whatever it is that ChatGPT is telling you is data that it found from somewhere.
Wow.
And sometimes it will tell you with complete conviction 100% the wrong thing. So it's not totally ready to be trusted as a definitive source, but some of the things that you can ask it to do for you are pretty incredible. I'm a home brewer as well, which is another one of my hobbies, and I've had it write beer recipes for me, and they turned out delicious.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really crazy.
Wow. That's incredible. So what kinds of things, like what might AI be capable of doing in the future, in the kind of near future? What do you think?
And I think that's the big question that's on a lot of people's minds right now is what do we have to look forward to?
Right.
What do we have to look out for? How is AI going to affect the world and affect our lives in the coming years? And the answer to that, there really isn't a direct definitive answer to this is exactly how AI is going to act.
Yeah.
If you remember how the internet was treated in the 1990s, that's kind of the point that we're at with AI right now. So this rapidly advancing AI technology is going to change the world, and it's going to change each of our lives in a ton of unpredictable ways. At the moment, we're really only scratching the surface of what AI is going to be capable of. As these algorithms and the computer hardware that runs them become more powerful, AI will be able to accomplish more and more amazing things, which means that it's going to bring with it both new opportunities and it's going to bring with it challenges and dangers, just like the internet has in the past 30 years.
Wow.
I kind of see artificial intelligence as a tool where, similar to the internet, similar to a calculator, similar to pretty much all of the tools that people have used throughout time, any new sort of technology that's introduced to humanity brings with it both the ability to do some really cool, amazing work and to really help people out, but it also brings with it new things that can hurt people too. So artificial intelligence can speed up our workflow. It can make business easier. It can make us more productive. It can give us more free time. It can allow people who have great creative ideas but don't necessarily know how to express them. It can help to give them an easier outlet to create and express those ideas. But on the other hand, artificial intelligence may end up taking some people's jobs. Artificial intelligence, if gone unchecked, could potentially become dangerous. And we really don't know where it's going to lead. So similar to all of these technologies of the past, even, the Stone Age, somebody makes a spear. Yes, we can hunt with it. We can get food, but also you can hurt each other with it. And that's AI is just an extension of all the technologies that we've had before, and we have to learn to adapt to it.
So I heard today there was this lady, she was telling me about an AI class that I was thinking about taking. And she said, people have said to her they're worried about losing their jobs to
Hmm.
AI. But she had an interesting way of putting it. She said, actually, the people who are learning about AI are that's who's going to take the jobs. It's the ones who
Right.
are, you know what I mean? Because if you're afraid of it and you're just like, oh, I don't need to know that for my job. But if it's controlling, like if it's influencing many different industries at many different levels, then I feel like it's really good to understand
Hmm.
how it works because you can kind of appreciate it, work with it, and then if there's dangers, at least you might be informed.
Yeah, and aware of how it works. And artificial intelligence does not exist in a vacuum. There's always going to be people involved somewhere within
Yes.
the process of the development of artificial intelligence, the
Mm-hmm.
training of artificial intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately anything that artificial intelligence learns, it gleans and picks up from somewhere else. And so it's only going to learn from things that people have already created.
Right.
So if you go to any of those artificial intelligence image creation softwares. Like there's one that Microsoft owns. I think it's called Bing Artificial Intelligence, and then
Okay.
there's
Mid-journey or no?
yeah, Midjourney's one of them. Stable Diffusion is one of them, and they
Okay.
they all produce. You can type in a prompt and it'll produce an image of that prompt. But
Wow.
those images that it creates with those prompts are basically just emulgations of lots of different images that already existed that it's seen before.
Okay.
It's creating new combinations of things that already
Yes.
exist,
That's
but
exactly what.
artificial intelligence still isn't able to create anything truly new. It's never going to create a new style of art because it has to use styles that people have already
I
developed.
see. So it's not self-generative like we are, right?
Not quite in the same sense. It sort of copies the creativity of people
Right.
by combining lots of different things that people are capable of. And so I can type in, Stephen Hawking shaking Albert Einstein's hand at the pearly gates, and it would create an image of that. And that image obviously never would have existed beforehand,
Right.
but everything from that image is taken from other places. Those pearly
Yeah.
gates, it knows what they look like because of other images
That's
that
true.
people have created.
Right. Yes, that makes perfect sense. It's funny. I was looking at this kind of job. I was just like watching YouTube, and
Hmm.
it's kind of like I can't remember the title of it. Something like data annotator, something like that. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That kind of sounds like an interesting thing to do, like for fun. And it was a job where you are feeding prompts, and in a sense, A and B, you get responses. And so what you're doing is you're making sure that there's nothing that's dangerous, harmful, immoral, violent, all those things, because that would be not what we want.
Yes.
So there's kind of like these kind of, in a sense, guardrails,
Hmm.
and so you're absolutely like you have influence over it. You can make it more work for good, right?
Yeah.
And so like I like that there's people's jobs, and they are required to not train the AI chatbot to go down, in a sense, a kind of a dark road.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. And Microsoft learned this the hard way
Wow.
because one of the earlier chatbots that Microsoft developed was essentially supposed to take tweets.
Yes.
It was supposed to use Twitter, and it would read through all these tweets and you use those to sort of develop its personality
Oh
to
my
to to
goodness.
create to make it able to mimic human language.
Right.
And the problem with this was that there was no one keeping this in check. And there was a group of people on the internet, trolls, who figured this out and realized that there were no safeguards in place
No.
for this artificial intelligence.
Right.
And within, I believe, like a day or two of this artificial intelligence releasing on Twitter, it was spouting racist ideologies and they had to shut it
My
down.
goodness. Within
Yeah,
a day.
within a day.
Like, oh
Hmm.
my goodness. So it's really great that there's people who care about, the repercussions, because it can't control us. Like it's like that movie Terminator where Skyrim, that
Yeah, yeah, it's Skynet. Yep.
Skynet, we can't have
Hmm.
that, right? We can't have that. So
Right, and that's interesting because before AI, even before computers were small enough for people to have a personal computer when computers were still,
Which was a
large
big
enough
deal.
to fill an entire room. There were people who were already hypothesizing about this sort of thing, like Isaac
Wow.
Asimov, Ray Bradbury, a lot of science fiction authors. And
At that time. That's amazing.
had already thought of, hey, what happens if we create an artificial intelligence
Wow.
and it takes over? It becomes too strong. It gets a will of its own. It
Right.
goes against what people want it to do. And so, as artificial intelligence continues to expand in real life now,
Yes.
that's one of the things that's on people's minds. Where how are we going to keep artificial intelligence from hurting us instead of helping us?
Do you have any ideas about that?
So that is a good question.
We need your help. Like we need to have, good people who care about using it for good.
Yeah,
Right.
so ultimately, kind of as I described AI before, it's like a tool. And so at this point, and at least for the foreseeable future,
Mm-hmm.
there is always a developer. There's always someone, or usually a group of intelligent
Okay.
someone's behind that artificial
I'm glad to hear
intelligence.
it.
They're feeding it, they're training it, et cetera, and so forth. And so that means that will an AI ever rebel against humanity or turn out to hate humans, kind of like Skynet? Uh, Hopefully not. I mean, I can't completely
Yeah.
rule out that potential opportunity, but I find that to be pretty unlikely. However, will people be able to use AI to cause damage to each other or to people's reputation or things like that? And yes, that's something that's already somewhat possible. And so, just like the way that we've been using the internet for years, we have to be very careful about it.
That's
And
true.
now more than ever, to fact check and to make sure that what we're looking at or what we're reading about is actually true, which is increasingly difficult
It
in
is.
these times.
Like deep fake videos and things like
Mhm.
that. Like it can be entertaining, but it can also be terrifying because of the implications.
Right.
So in your work, do you have ways of checking into the authenticity of something?
That's a good question. So, in my work as a teacher, I would do that a lot more often
True.
than in my work at the Center for Simulation and
Right.
Innovation.
Oh my
With
goodness.
CSI, the fact checking that we do is, of course, any data that we put into our programs, we make
Mhm.
sure is true and accurate.
Very good.
We
That's good.
we make sure that our models our 3D models are sourced from places where we've actually purchased them and they're not pirated
That's
and
good.
all of that sort of stuff. So we do keep up on that fact checking, but the most fact checking that I've ever had to do was when I was a teacher and I had to go through kids' papers and I had to say, okay, was this written by a student or was this written by an artificial intelligence? And there were quite a few times where there were some utilities online that I could put it into, and it would give a good guess as to whether or not
What percentage?
yeah, it could give a percentage
Yeah.
guess as to whether or not it was generated by AI, but AI is getting better.
Yeah.
And those programs are less and less reliable. So a lot of what I relied on was, okay, Noah, I know you don't write like this. This must be
Exactly.
this must be generated by AI.
Which back in the day it would be like, did your dad write this?
Exactly.
But
And
that's funny.
it's the same thing. It's like, oh, did you get your older brother to write this? Now, instead
Right.
of going to their older brother and giving him $10 to write their paper,
Right.
they can go to ChatGPT and do the same thing. So ultimately, it's still up to a teacher's discretion whether or not something was actually written by that student. And it's not a new problem. It's just a new
Right.
way for that problem to exist.
That's true. And I think too, like we want our children to learn for themselves and to learn, to think critically themselves and not be like, this is going to be an easy way for me to get this assignment done without any effort or learning. So it's, teachers are absolutely crucial in this whole,
Yes.
universe
Mhm.
of learning. It makes it easier though. Like I find like if I want to have ideas about doing something, if I were to make a podcast script, you could actually go and brainstorm with ideas that it comes up with.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
it's great for outlining.
it's good for like getting ideas that you never thought of before, and then you do the actual writing. but it's almost like having a team of people in a room at a meeting saying, okay, just give me all your ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know what I
It can be
mean?
good for research as long as that research is double checked
That's right.
because AI
Has to be
has
true.
that problem with hallucinations.
Yes.
But I was helping a lawyer out one time who was doing research on there's not much I can say about it, but doing research on a medical case.
Okay.
And we had to find certain doctors with certain specifications to interview essentially. And ChatGPT, you know, I could have taken all day Googling to look for these doctors with all of these specific certifications in this certain area, yada, yada. And I plugged it into ChatGPT, came up with 5 names right away.
No.
And it was super easy just to call them and get the information that you know, that was needed.
So much time. It's true. Yeah, that's amazing. So I think we have to be very, like a vet, right? Vet like sources, right?
Yes. Yeah. It needs to be double checked for sure. But that's the way that, once again, that's the way that things have always been. You could
True.
go online
Yeah.
and Google. I mean, I'll throw a wild one out there because this has been a hot topic. But you could Google all sorts of things about vaccines.
Yes.
And have no idea which studies are true and which studies are false.
Absolutely.
And it's, you know, that same thing applies to artificial intelligence
That's
as well.
very true. It's good to know that we have some say in it. And that companies, I think, do you think that government should have some kind of guardrail or something like that? Like maybe a little bit of a guardrail so that companies can't take advantage of people? Like, do you think that there's a good reason to try to be, like, what's the word, altruistic perhaps, or truthful, or you know what I mean?
So I think with any emerging technology, governments take notice.
Yeah,
And
they do.
so I'm sure I'm sure it's being talked about already.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be some sort of a government involvement with how AI should and shouldn't be used. But ultimately, I'm not sure how much it matters because this is taking place digitally. This is not taking place in person. So
Yeah.
people who are able to take these AIs and reverse engineer them,
Right.
who are able to understand the algorithms, who are able to write their own AIs, regardless of what the government says, there will be people who do what they want.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And ultimately, the government won't be able to decide
No,
exactly how things go. They can put rules in place to keep companies from doing certain things.
they're not individuals.
But when it comes down to the individuals, just like software piracy today, people will find ways to do as they please.
Remember that FBI warning that they would have at the beginning of the movies?
Yep, I do.
And it's like, ooh, you know. Like
I love the you wouldn't download a car, and it's like, if I could, I might. Like,
yeah, where's that 3D printer? You know, I wish I could do metal. It'd be nice, you know. But it's an interesting time that we're in. Don't you find it exciting to be young and to be learning and to be immersed in all of this? And look at the people you met today at the conference.
Oh man, absolutely.
And like, wow, you know, it's really exciting. And I feel that, you know, you kind of want to keep up with it as much as you can because if you don't, oh my goodness, because of how fast it's evolving, like you have to know a little bit about it at the very least. Know how to use like even ChatGPT. That's a good start.
ChatGPT is a great start to sort of understand the potential of AI and what artificial intelligence is capable of.
Right.
The artificial intelligence that I mentioned at the very beginning with my example of how does AI work, that is a real artificial intelligence, and that was one of the more early ones that can create photos of people. If you search up, if you go to thispersondoesnotexist.com and keep refreshing the page, it'll just be a new picture of a new person that has never existed and will never exist over and over again. You can do it as much as you want.
Never gets tired, never sleeps.
Yep.
Never.
It's when I first saw it, and it's funny when I first started using it years ago to show some of my students back when I taught high school, to show them what artificial intelligence was capable of. It was a lot of those pictures was very obvious that things were off. The eyes didn't look quite right. They had too many teeth. They had too many fingers. You know, like it wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
Now, if you go on there, it's much better. It's almost impossible to tell the difference.
Wow. Yeah, that's extraordinary. And so, like, you know how they have Chat GPT 4 and Chat GPT 3? Is there much difference between the two of them? Very much, not very much, or
so similar to other types of software, whenever an artificial intelligence goes through a revision, that's usually a tweaking of a couple of things. It'll usually change sometimes it changes the algorithm where, okay, how can we make this algorithm process data better to give us more accurate results?
Right.
And sometimes it's also a change in how that algorithm is fed. So what kind of information are we giving to this algorithm, and how is that information curated to make sure that it's getting reliable things?
That's true.
And so when you have a combination of an algorithm that's really good at parsing that information and learning from it, on top of information that's really solid, you get an amazing AI interpretation. But even if you have the best algorithm on the market, even if you've custom designed an algorithm that's leagues beyond everything that anybody else has built, if you feed it garbage information, it will still spit out garbage information.
Wow. It's incredible. I'm really glad we had a chance to talk about it. And thank you so much for coming on
my pleasure.
to speak with me. It's so nice to talk with you. And I'm really glad that we're going to be playing in a couple of weeks D&D. And that's going to be amazing
for our Dungeons & Dragons campaign. I'm so excited.
It's so exciting. And it's really amazing. We're having the DM come from Canada to come and actually be our Dungeon Master. So that's extraordinary. So I really appreciate your time and your kindness, you being patient with me, because I'm just learning along with everyone else. But you're a great teacher of these subjects. And if you'd ever like to come back, I'd love to speak with you again.
Oh, I'd love to.
Absolutely. So thank you. And we'll see you next time. And thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here and listening in on this conversation. And we want to hear feedback and questions. We welcome comments and things like that.
Yeah.
And you can give us suggestions about what you want to talk about in the future.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, I cannot wait to be here in the studio again. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. What a pleasure. Thank you, Jacob. So we'll see you again soon, all right? So we'll see you next time. Thank you.